Hello everyone and good morning. How are you doing? Happy Tuesday. It's time for another Tea Time with Taylor, so I'm glad you're here tuning in today. Let me know you're watching, leave me a comment, tell me what's going on in your neck of the woods. It is officially August. It's now kind of mid-August, and we are in all things back to school mode here where we're at. So the girls have their school supplies. I'm calling this a little mini victory. We got all of the school supplies purchased over the weekend. Henry too. So feeling good about that. Now we just have to go back to school clothes shopping because they need some, Whitney's trying to get this TV screen hooked up, and apparently the sound is still on, so we're now also hearing my voice. So just a second, please. Is it all good? Okay, I think we're all good now. Let me see who's on today and who is here watching. I'll say hi to a few of you. Hi, Lori. Hello, ECs. Good morning. Tiffany out in Ohio. Betty's here. Good morning, Nancy and Linda and Michelle in Kentucky. The weather's a little bit dreary today, so at least here we are having kind of a rainy week. How about you guys? Is it nice and sunny summer weather? We have the Iowa State Fair going on right now, so this kind of weather is not really very friendly for outdoor activities like that. So hopefully everybody at the fair is doing okay today, even with the rain. It hasn't been like downpouring rain, so that's good. Just an occasional sprinkle here and there. Hello, Dawn. Penny's here this morning. Hi, Becky. Good morning. Good morning, Karen in Illinois. We've got lots of watchers today. Well, I am excited about today because a lot of times during the Tuesday lives, I have a short time to craft with you guys, but today we have a long time to craft. So I'm going to talk about a few things, including a special offer that we launched this morning. So we don't have a new release of products today. Instead, we are focusing on mass producing magic. This time of year is one of those times when we are making lots of cards. So the holidays are coming up. I'm sure you guys make multiple Halloween cards, multiple Christmas cards for sure. I know some of you start really early in the year on that, but we have some products specifically to help you with mass producing. It's not a new Tailored Expressions product. It is something that we launched, I think, about 3 years ago. And this was my way of kind of making the process go a little bit faster. I think that's always something we want to get more a more bang for our buck, so to say. So you get to create 4 panels in one layering stencil with our creating quads, or you get to create 3 mini slim panels in one stencil from our triple slim stencils. So both of those are great options for mass producing when you're thinking about birthday cards or Christmas cards or just cards for your stash in general. We all need floral cards all the time. We can put a good sentiment, lots of good sentiments on those, like sympathy or just a note or hello friend. So I am going to be crafting with you guys today using one of my favorite creating quad stencils. It happens to be the very first one that we released, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to bring you guys down in front of me and show you some of the samples that have been created in the past from our design team members using our creating quads and our triple slim stencils. So let's see. This one, everybody recognize this fun one? These are from 2 different designers, but you can see this uses the same stencil. It's called Totally Rad, Create in Quads Totally Rad. It has that cute roller skate and the boom box, so that is one of my favorites too. I like to use it for birthday cards or just general kind of you rock, congratulatory, you did it type of cards as well. So that's one of the creating quads that you'll find 20% off on the website. Let me throw up that graphic here just so that you can see what that looks like. And this is valid on all creating quads and triple slim stencils, 20% off of those. So let's get back to the good stuff here, the inspiration. We've got another one here, this pretty duo. So this one came from our Creating Quads poster prints, and some of these use foilet patterns that you can add on to your quad stencils. The foilet packs are not part of the sale, just the stencils, but there are options for you to grab some of those panels that can be foiled and then stenciled over the top to give you that extra detail on the designs. Then let's take a look at another favorite quad. This one is Creating Quads Ever in Bloom, and it creates this beautiful grouping of florals. Again, 4 different panels. This one has the kind of floral spray that you can layer over the top of another design. And then here you have the floral border that you can use the coordinating die to cut out the inside and place your sentiment or focal image. So lots of options for this one. I think we released this with our Easter release, but it has just endless possibilities for the sentiments you can use with a good floral card. So that is Ever in Bloom. Then this is another quad here. This one is our birthday quad, and you can see it has foiled details on it. So this one uses the foilet panel that coordinates with that design for this nice, simple, cute birthday card with the stacks of presents on there. Sally says poster prints are her favorite. Pam is asking if any of our quads have retired. No, we have not retired any of our quads. So those are all still there. Same with the triple slims. We haven't retired any of those. So all of the designs we released are part of the sale. Okay, let's talk about a couple of triple slims now. This one is the In the Kitchen triple slim, and you can see these came from different batches of cards because they're all different colors, but it gives you an idea of the different patterns and designs that you can get with this triple slim. And triple slims then are designed to cut apart and create mini slim cards, which are a little bit different size than our traditional A2 card, but they mail for the same price. So a good perk of having it having different sizes is you just get to kind of experience different formats for sending your cards. These are a little bit longer, so you have the option to do kind of longer groupings of things on your cards if you wish. So those are from the triple slim In the Kitchen. And then this one, Heather created this recently on a live with our postage stamp stacklets. And this particular triple slim stencil is called In the Garden. So another fun one that you can stencil and then cut apart. I believe in her video, she stenciled directly onto the die cut postage pieces to get this cool look. Beth, that's a good question. Will you be doing foilets on toffee cardstock? We will not. So in the past, we did do a few foilets on toffee cardstock. And because of the kind of texture and the tooth of a toffee cardstock, it does not foil very well. So we're not very pleased with those results, and that is why we don't do foiling on toffee cardstock anymore. So thanks for bringing that up and asking that question. Let's see. Yes, maybe Michelle said the ones from the Quad of the Month Club were exclusive to the club. So those aren't technically retired because they were never part of our collection, but maybe those are the other 6 that you're thinking of from the club last year that are have been released but are not part of our full collection. So all right, now these are the ones that we're going to create together today. This is the Creating Quads Mistletoe stencil, and this was the very first Creating Quads that we released right before Christmas 3 years ago. And obviously they are sort of a modern looking mistletoe with berries. But what I love about this one is its versatility. So you really can use these designs. Obviously, I chose purple today. I know everybody can be surprised about that. But you can use these with a lot of different colors. I've seen these berries in beautiful yellows and blues, and obviously we're going to do purple today. So just by changing up the color of those berries, I think you get a more floral appearance than you do a Christmas mistletoe appearance. So yeah, we're gonna create these together, and because this was our very first quad that we released, we have released a lot of other new products since then that lend themselves really well to adding different sentiments and elements to these stencil designs. So I'm going to pull in several things from our collection and show you how you might use those with the Mistletoe quad to create these cards for just about any occasion. I've got a couple of thank yous, a hello, and you're pretty much the best. So those are the sentiments that I used. And yes, Mindy called me out. She said my nails matched the live today, which quite honestly was unintentional. Sometimes I go to the nail salon and I pick out my color and it turns out really different than what the swatch looks like. This was supposed to be navy. I wanted to have navy nails, but it turned out such a beautiful purple color that I didn't make them change it. So I think it turned out looking just like dried fig, which is the color that I used for these projects. Okay, so let's get started. Before we get into our crafty project today, because this is it's not my first live of the month, but it is my first opportunity to talk about the freebies this month. Oddly, it is August 13th, and we are just now talking about our August 1st freebies. That's okay, though.
These are flying by.
Yes, the days are flying by. I haven't even put my sticker on my panel yet. So if you're not familiar, you're newer to Tailored Expressions, with every order you get a free stamp, and each of these stamps is coordinated together. We have this panel that you can collect your stamps on. Each stamp comes also with a little sticker, so you can place that sticker down on your panel and then put your stamp on the back. So each month, on the first of the month, a different stamp is launched, and then at the end of the year, you'll have 12 pretty postage stamps if you order once every month. So let's go ahead. This month is obviously one of my favorites. It's got a cute little cloud with a rainbow coming out of the bottom of the cloud. So cute. All right, so we're gonna peel this off of the back. Mindy asked, when does school start for us? It starts 23rd. August 23rd. Yeah, a week from Friday. So we are preparing. I am preparing myself. Mindy, I know you will kind of appreciate this, but I'm kind of preparing myself for a rough go with Henry. Change is hard for him, and he's gotten into his routine of just waking up when he wants in the morning and playing. And so going to school is going to be a different experience. And every time we drive by the school, we say, Henry, are you excited? This is going to be your school this year, because he's going to a new school. And his immediate response every time is, no. So Henry he's nonverbal, but no is a word that he definitely can say. So yeah, we get a big old no. So I'm sure it's gonna go really well. All right, so here we go. This is the August freebie placed on our pretty postage panel. You can purchase these panels on the website because your stamp just comes the way that it is, not on a panel. But you know, if you're collecting maybe more than one each month, you can grab 2 panels, however many you want in order to store your collection. Then we also have our 100 plus freebie this month, and I didn't share this last week because we had our exclusive graveyard shift for our Halloween release, but now we are back to our feature frames freebie this month, and you can see this includes 4 different frames. As we were talking about a good idea for a freebie, we always like to make it something versatile and widely useful and widely appealing, and it seemed like a lot of times what we were missing in our collection was a great spot to land a sentiment, and so that is what these are designed for. If you want your sentiment to be the focal part of your card, you can just kind of nest it right inside one of these frames, and then it can set apart from whatever background you've created and be a great focal piece on your card. So Jill Hawkins created some beautiful cards. She did one for every frame in this set. I don't think I've had a chance to show these to you guys yet. But here you have, I mean, I just said it's a great place to land a sentiment, but it's also a great place to create a focal image as well, which is what Jill did on, I think, all of these, which I think is awesome. So on this one, she's got some of our garden variety flowers cut inside that kind of tag etched frame on the outside, and she actually has the same color on the inside and the outside, so you can do that. You don't have to use it as a frame. You can put another piece inside of it and use it as a full piece. So that one is this frame on the top right. Then she created another little focal piece inside this sweet scalloped or oval frame with the bees from our Petal Pop set and more of those garden variety flowers. This is the Flower Fields 3D embossing folder that she used on both of these projects, which just creates such a pretty pop when she does the white on white with the white card base and the white embossed piece. Then we have this one that is the little Polaroid piece here, and she put the apples in there. This would be a great back to school card. I pick you for kind of back to school teacher card. I think that one turned out super cute. And then this one, Heather called it. She says, I love the Friends door. So this is designed after the door from Friends. I do have to admit, I'm not a huge Friends fan. So, I mean, I love Friends. I just didn't really get into it when it was on. I wouldn't say that I watched a ton of episodes, but I certainly have watched episodes. But when I saw Jill's card, I thought, maybe she forgot to finish it. Because I just thought it was like, maybe there was supposed to be a critter. I looked through the envelope for something that was supposed to sit in here, but no. It's just me. I'm not very smart. So this is designed to be the Friends door. So I had to look it up. And then, of course, I was like, oh my goodness, Jill, so clever. And it says, hey, friend on it, which is super cute. So yes, that is this one here, the bottom right, which is kind of the bracketed frame, which fits a lot of our little critters and our occasional critters really, really well. So kind of other fun options for that. So there you have it, the freebies for the month. We're going to be using those feature frames on a couple of the cards today. I have that one of the frames on this card and then that pretty oval scallop frame on this card. And our first step, we need to start stenciling our quad. So I am going to grab my cardstock. This is the Creating Quads stencil, and if you're not familiar with how these work, then you are going to learn today. Super simple. It is a 4-layer stencil. It has an etching mark around the outside, and it was designed to place your paper and line it up behind that etched line. Because the reason why we did it this way is when you are done stenciling these, if you cut your paper down to start at 8 by 10.5, so 8 across the top and 10.5 down the side, that is going to fit perfectly behind this etched line. And when you're done stenciling all of your patterns, you can simply cut that piece into quarters and use it on your card fronts as A2 panels. Now, I know some people prefer to stencil these on 8.5 by 11, and you can certainly do that as well. And then you would just need to cut off around the outsides, cut that 1/4 inch off around all 4 sides before you cut it into quarters. And that's how you're going to make sure that your pieces are perfectly centered, because we have done all of that guesswork for you. You don't have to make any of those decisions. You just simply stencil and cut, and everything should be perfectly aligned. So I am going to take and grab my teal tape. I want to make sure I have that ready to tack this down before we get started. There are several ways you can line these up too. You can see if you're using our glass board, we have a spot here for the Creating Quads paper. If you're cutting it down to 8 by 10.5, then you can see exactly where that fits on your glass board. And then there's also a line around that for where the stencil goes. And that can help you line up those pieces just perfectly. Now, if you want to be a little bit more exacting, which I'm going to show you this method. This is just how we didn't have the glass board when we started these stencils, and so this is how I kind of taught myself, and I've had really good experience with this method. So I'm actually going to pull out one of my placemats. First, I'm going to line this up behind so that I can just feel good about that step being done. So I have this lined up behind the etch marking of my stencil, and I'm going to tack that into place with my teal tape. All right, so teal tape is made for stencils. We have talked about how it's not great for sending through your die cut machine because it can rip your paper. It has a little bit more tackiness than a typical stencil tape that I have used in the past, which is why we designed it. Plus it's teal, so I love that. Now I'm going to take something that I don't use quite as often anymore, but I still love to use this with my quads. So I have one of our placemats here, and it's a little bit easier for me to see if I flip that placemat over onto the back side. So even if you just have kind of a larger piece of typing paper, did I call it typing paper? I sure did. Man, old habits die really hard, that one especially. Printer paper, if you have just plain printer paper, you can use that as well. Okay, then I put some adhesive across the back of my stencil, and I'm going to tack that down to my placemat. This is going to ensure that when I'm ready to switch stencil layers, my paper, my cardstock, is going to stay attached to my paper placemat. We're going to mark these little alignment squares on here so that putting down each subsequent layer of the stencil is super simple. So I'm just going to trace those. I like to fill it in so that I can get the full effect of the whole square. And then sometimes, if it's difficult to tell on the design, I will put a little dot down in the corner where my item number is, so that when I go to replace the next layer, I look for the item number and I know that it goes in this corner. So that's just another little tip that I use sometimes. Okay, so here we have our first panel ready to go. This is the most time-consuming one to line up, and it's also the most important one. After this, they're going to go really easy and simple because everything is staying tacked down to our placemat that has these alignment squares on it. So I am going to grab my first ink color. Let's see. Pam's asking, if you use the placemat, do you notice if the ink on the placemat transfers back to your cardstock when switching colors? No, it does not. Our ink is super fast drying, so you're not going to get ink transfer from pulling the ink onto your stencil from the placemat. So no worries there. And this first color ink that I'm using is green tea. And I wanted to use some new colors that had been released since we released this stencil, because I think a lot of the samples that we have on the website use colors that we had available at that time. And since these are new, this might give a little bit different look than something you've seen before on the web samples that are available. So Pam, since you asked that question, that gives me a little bit of an opportunity to talk about one instance where you might find that the color can transfer. And there is that, the reason why I like to put my stencil, my teal tape underneath, is because I have found that if you have ink on your teal tape and it's sitting on top of your stencil, The teal tape is not made from a material like paper that soaks in the ink and dries it quickly. And so you can experience some smearing if you're using teal tape kind of face up on the top of your stencil, and then you're pulling that over onto your project. So if you do have teal tape on your stencil face up, I just kind of try to avoid it when I'm doing my blending. Try and keep the ink off of it since it's not a fast drying material if ink does get on it.
Julie is also asking a really good question about quads. She says, do you have any tips for blending onto the foilets? She says she struggles a bit.
Any tips for stenciling onto coordinating foilets? We don't have a coordinating foilet for this particular quad, but Whitney, if you wanted to grab something from our stash, maybe that has a coordinating foilet, and then I can explain how I would do that, and I can kind of do that at the end once I'm done blending this. But we do have, Julie, to answer your question more fully, we do have videos out on our YouTube channel. I know there is specifically one that I did using the Totally Rad stencil with the foilets, so you can see my technique in more of a digestible format with the YouTube video. You can pause it and listen to how I line those foilets up behind the stencils. Okay, so there we have layer 1. We'll peel that back. I want to make sure that my paper, again, is staying attached to my placemat. And then we're going to take this one, item number down here with my little dot. I have my 4 alignment squares that I'm going to use to line this up. I'm also going to use, like we talk about when we're doing all of our other layering stencils, I'm going to use my visual cues to make sure that these are lining up over the top of what we blended. This is basically creating a half-tone leaf on all of the leaves that we just blended. So the opening on the stencil is half of the leaf, and we want to make sure we're blending that in a coordinating color because that ink is going right on top of what we just blended. So I picked the Brussels sprout, which is the coordinate for green tea. And it's another new color that's been released since we released this particular stencil. And I kept telling myself, I am using a placemat, however, I can still swipe off on my glass board that's over here so that if I want to grab any of that excess ink and not waste it on my placemat, I can still do that. I want to make sure I'm getting enough contrast, so applying a nice, using a heavier hand to apply a nice layer of this Brussels sprout ink. All right. I forgot to tell them something, Whitney. I just realized just a tiny little new product that was offered or released today. You guys will remember our grab bag sale that we did back in July. It feels like yesterday and forever ago, all at the same time. But we did send out those grab bags in this cute crafty tote. We had some extras left of the crafty tote, and so we were able to put those extras we were able to put those extras up on the website today. So if you want to get yourself a crafty tote, they are available. Limited quantities. When they're gone. So we won't be keeping this in the catalog or restocking it, but this is what we had left over from grab bags. If you want to purchase a tote bag of your own, you can do that. Okay. We're going to peel that one back then, and we're on to layer 3, which is the first layer of berries. So there's one layer, oops, I didn't listen to my directions. Here's my item number over in this corner. There is one layer of berries, that's this one, that stencils the entire berry. And then the second layer is kind of a little accent piece for the berries to give them dimension. So for this layer, we're going to use dried fig. Dried fig, like my nails. And we'll just blend a nice kind of lighter purple. I'm not using a super heavy hand. Make sure as you're blending, something I always like to mention to newbie blenders that you might miss unless you're really looking closely at what I'm doing, but I am switching directions as I'm blending. So I'm blending both clockwise and counterclockwise when I blend the ink across the stencil. And when you have smaller openings in your stencil, you'll really notice that you need to go in both directions in order to completely fill the stencil opening. Also, it helps get a really consistent blend as opposed to always stenciling in the same direction. The most intense parts of your ink are going to be hitting the same direction of the stencil every time. And then you're going to end up with kind of darker edges on one side than the other. So what card occasions are on everybody's desk right now? Whitney, is it a heavy birthday month for you?
It is. I have my nephew's birthday, and then we're going into September, which is even more birthdays.
Yes.
My husband and
Maddie's birthday.
Your girl is going to be a teenager.
I'm going to have a teenager. You guys, make time stop.
Yeah, that's crazy.
My little girl is turning 13. All right.
I've already said that I'm obsessed with these cards that you made today, so I may need to either steal these or make them by myself. I'm taking notes.
Oh, it was pretty fun. Like, to take something old and make it new is something I love to do. So figuring out a way to just make it different than what has been done before. And I think so many of our products work so nicely together that even though a lot of the things we're using today weren't intended to go with this particular design, they go so well, like seamlessly.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so this time we are going to apply using passion fruit ink. And I have my little bitty brush for this one because these openings are pretty small, but actually, Whitney, I might have you bring me a passion fruit bigger brush because I feel like
Sure.
it just might, I mean, it's working nicely. And if I only had one quadrant to do, that would be a great option because it gets into those little spaces a little bit better than a full brush. But it's going to take me a while, I think, to get through this whole stencil, and I don't want you guys to get bored watching me blender brush before we get to all the fun stuff. Okay, so thank you, Whitney. Whoops. Just want to make sure I'm giving it a little bit harder pressure and traveling in both directions, since these larger brushes don't fill in the tiny spaces of the stencil quite as well as the tiny brushes do. But they are faster. Ooh, who said they've got 5 birthdays this month? Oh, it's Charlie said September's the best birthday month. It's her birthday in September too. right, almost there. Got lots of people working on Halloween cards. Just because, looking towards Halloween soon, Wendy says. Working on some just because cards.
I need to make teacher
Yes.
We should get together and do that.
We really should. How about we do that?
Snackle box.
Maybe that will be our special reward after making it through back to school shopping.
Yes.
I'm kind of dreading it, going clothes shopping with my kids who are now so opinionated and picky. And I've kind of learned that you need to go into it with some reverse psychology, because the moment I say anything is cute, they're like, no, I don't like that. So if I think it's really cute, I just say, oh yeah, I don't really like that. And then they're like, yeah, I really like this. And then I'm happy too. Okay, so here we are. This is the final finished design. We're going to peel this off of the placemat now. I should have asked earlier, but I'm curious. I'm seeing some people talk about their favorite quads. So if you haven't left a comment with your favorite quad or triple slim, leave us a comment. We all have our favorites, or maybe it's just most used, most versatile, that gets your favorite vote. All right, now comes the fun part, because everything has been measured out and designed for you to get perfect results. We're gonna take this large piece and I'm gonna line it up down the center at 4 inches, because I previously cut this down to 8. So I'm cutting it in half at 4, and we'll just travel that up. Now this side is going to be cut at 5 1/4. With some of these that have the white space on it, it can be a little tricky to figure out, how far up or down the white space is supposed to be. So that's why using the measurements that we have given you, that each of these panels should end up at 4 by 5 1/4, will help you get perfectly positioned pieces. So there's that. In this case, for the quad, it was intended to be kind of a hanging meet me under the mistletoe type of an image. And I'm going to show you how to change that. So it's not a hanging mistletoe, but instead a basket of flowers. So 4 by 5 1/4 on this one. Yes, Carol says TE's birthday's September too, right? It sure is. We are celebrating our Sweet 16 this fall, and can't wait to show you. We can drive. We're getting our license this fall. So yeah, can't wait to show you all of the fun stuff we have planned for our birthday. Okay, before we get to creating with these, I am gonna clean off my little area of ink over here, so I don't get that in my nice pretty projects. Okay, so our next step, we are going to do some splattering. I'm gonna bring in my splatter box, and we're gonna give this a light splatter with some chocolate truffle liquid watercolor. So let's go ahead and place these down inside here. I have a small acrylic block, and then I have my chocolate truffle liquid watercolor. This is actually a trick that I learned from Heather. She splatters with this quite often. It's not quite as intense as our black liquid watercolor. Works great for kind of nature type scenery like we have with these flowers. So I'm just gonna squirt that out there. It already has water in it, so I'm not gonna add any extra water unless I wanted to dilute the color or soften the color even more. I could add some additional water to that. I have my paintbrush here, And I'm just gonna pick up some of that color with the paintbrush. One of the things that I talk about with splattering is I actually start my splatter off to the side over here, because those are gonna be the biggest drops of splatter that come off at the beginning. And then I'm gonna come over to my panels. And as the splatter starts to come off the brush, I start to hit my finger harder. And that's how I get these really kind of fine flecks of splatter, because there's not very much of the liquid watercolor left on the brush. And I just have to hit my finger a little bit harder to get those little tiny flecks of color to come off of my brush. All right, I don't know if it might be difficult to see. I'll hold them up in front of the camera here. Before I put this away completely, I have one more thing to splatter, which now that I'm thinking of it, I probably should have started with my white splatter. But Whitney, do you think you could get me another paintbrush?
Absolutely.
Because washing the brown splatter out of this is just going to take more water than I have access to right now. Okay, so I did pre-die cut my little sprig. This is called the Berry Branch, and this was one that kind of reminded me of the style that's in that Mistletoe quad. It's a newer die that's been released since then. Before I splatter, I do want to add some ink to this, so I will stick that out of the way really quickly while we give some dimension to this particular branch, and then we're going to splatter it. So it's going to get lots of dimension. So Brussels sprout ink, this is cut from green tea cardstock. So I'm using the slightly darker ink color to add a little bit of dimension to the leaves. I'm just traveling up the center of the stem. There's what that looks like with that darker color added. Now we'll bring the splatter box back in again. I'm going to splatter this with both white and the chocolate truffle liquid watercolor. Since I have the chocolate truffle out, I'll go ahead and start with that. And this one I'm less worried about getting big kind of drops on, because it's not a white piece of cardstock, so it's not going to appear overwhelming if I do get a big splotch of it. Okay, so wipe up my block, grab my new paintbrush, and then we're going to use the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. We'll take a little bit of this medium out of the jar with my clean paintbrush. Thank you, Whitney. So just a little bit of that on my brush. I'll put it down here. And this one, you do need to add water to before you splatter. So I've got my eyedropper bottle here. And we'll put, 2 or 3 drops of water. Mix that up. And then splatter this onto the branch. There we go. All right, here's what that looks like then. You can see the dimension from the darker green color and then the added splatter on top of it. Okay, I think my panels are dry now. Let me wipe this up again from that green ink before we continue. I've done quite a bit of pre-die cutting for you guys because I just wanted to speed the process along a little bit, but I will mention and show you where all of the dies are coming from for the cards that I created. So let's start with this one. This one that was intended to be mistletoe, and instead you might want to just flip it over and turn it into this cute little kind of garden pail filled with flowers. So I am using, actually Whitney, you might have to help me with what is the name of that pail that I use.
Antique pail.
Okay, this one is called the Antique Pail, and we have several versions of the different pails that you can put flower arrangements into. I think our bucket, the rustic, I don't know what the other one is that's more horizontal, but rustic pail, it worked as well, but I decided on this one. And you can see it can just fit right down here at the bottom. And we have our beautiful bouquet coming out of the top. So I wanted to give this a little bit of dimension. If I bring in my sample, you can see here maybe that I have stamped that die cut piece with our linen background. I've showed this before in the past as well. It's just kind of something I do whenever I die cut a bucket to make it look more, metallic, galvanized, I guess you could say. Just give it some extra texture. So I'm stamping that background stamp. This is the linen background. And then I'm just going to press that die cut onto the linen. This is my I don't feel like getting out my Misty technique, where I just press the design into the stamp. And then you can see that texture that gets added with the sugar cube ink. Now we'll go ahead and adhere this, and I do think I popped this up with foam tape. So let me grab my foam here and we'll add a few squares on the back. All right. Oh yes, sounds like, I don't know how long ago this comment was, but Barbara said that her stencils don't reflect 20% off, and then Pam helped out and said make sure you add the code. So there is a coupon code that you can find on the website, and that will get you your discount on those stencils. So it's not an automatic cart level discount. You need to add that coupon code in order to see the discount reflected. Okay, so there's that little pot at the bottom. Now I have these. These are a must-have for me when we are creating with the Create and Quad stencils. They just add that little bit of framing that some of the dies need in order to kind of bring that focal to the center. So this is our A2 thin frame cutting plate. And we also have this cutting plate in a mini slim size. So we have our mini slim thin frame cutting plate as well. So if you're using our triple slim stencils, you can kind of give those an outline or a frame using that die set. So I'm just adding a little bit of the glue around the outside. And then I'm going to position this, centering that bouquet and placing the frame all the way at the bottom. And then we'll adhere that down. And then I'm going to take my paper trimmer. You could also use a scissors, whatever you feel more comfortable with. And I'm going to cut along the edge of the frame. I like to be able to make sure where I want my frame, and just adhering that down first gives me control of where I am placing that imagery, and then just cutting off the excess on the sides. Seems to be easier for me, but you know, everybody else can do it how you like. If you want to cut your panel first and then place your frame on top, you can do it that way. All right, then another newer die that I brought in with this particular project is this one is called All Planned Out 2. And I find myself reaching for this perfect little scalloped piece a lot. So I'm just gonna go ahead and adhere that down to the scalloped frame. And I believe I used, yes, I did use some foam tape for that. So I'll get my thin foam strips. I don't wanna pop it up too much. Where are my thin foam strips? They are here somewhere. Yes, okay. So we're gonna take this and put some thin foam on the back. Okay. I love seeing people's favorites. Got a couple totally rad. Falling for You.
I love that one.
Is a perfect time of year for Falling for You. That one's a triple slim. All right, and somebody else asked what's the Velcro I have on my tape rolls. So that's one of those cord, I think they call them cord keepers or something along those lines. You can just grab those at Amazon or Target has them, I know. They're for organizing your cords, but they also work great for holding on to your tape rolls. All right, then to finish this card off, I have already pre-embossed the sentiment. So a couple of the sentiments on these cards came from the Bits and Bloom set. I'll be using Hello Friend and Thank You for Being So Kind. So we'll go ahead and just place that down in this top corner. If you wanted to add any extras, I also thought like a sweet little butterfly die cut, like a Little Bits butterfly would be cute, nestled in here right along the little berries. So there's our first panel. Let's go ahead and, which one should we do next? I'm looking at the time thinking we might not make it through all of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this one because we have already done that berry branch here. So this is the one with the kind of trail of mistletoe down the side, or we'll just call it berries for now. And then we have our berry branch that we die cut that's gonna fit somewhere right about here. Now I also pre-die cut some berries, so let me dump those out of my little jar here. And we are going to go ahead and place this. I'm gonna go ahead and glue this down on my panel, but I'm not going to glue these particular leaves here because I want my sentiment to have a little spot to nest underneath there. So we'll just put adhesive everywhere except here. So I'm going to hold on to the part that I don't want adhesive on. All right. Kind of place that swoop or swag down the side. Then I have another frame that I'm going to use. I think this is the one. Yes, this one fits all the way around the outside, and then we're just going to trim off that excess at the top. I can do that first here. We'll just trim off that little berry branch stem and place this guy over the top. Here I thought I would have so much crafting time today. I'm not used to having so much, and I still am running out of time. Blending a quad does take a little bit of time, but it is a huge time saver if you think about what it would take to blend all of these panels if they were separate stencils. Okay, so now I want 3 berries. And I'm going to blend those with my detail blender brush and some passion fruit ink. I wanted to add a little highlight. So these are die cut from the dried fig cardstock. And we can really just kind of drag these over here. I've got enough ink, I think, to do all of these berries. And these little berries come with the berry branch die, so they are included in that. If you wanted to fuss with foam tape, I'm pretty sure I did fuss with foam tape on the original sample card, but for right now, I'm just gonna place those berries down instead of foam taping them. Right, and this one can go down here. So as we talked about, this is still unadhered so that I can slip my sentiment under there. So let's go ahead and do the sentiment. I'll clean this off really quick. This sentiment that I'm using comes from the Sundry Sentiments set, another new one we have released more recently. So I wanted to bring it in with this pretty style of the quad. And I'm going to use Thank You. And I wanted to show you guys, so I know I talk a lot about how I like to use VersaFine Clair with clear embossing powder, and that gives me a beautifully embossed black sentiment. There is kind of one exception to that. So when you are embossing on vellum, I wanted to show you the difference here, and I don't know if you'll be able to really catch it on camera, but this Thank You sentiment is embossed on vellum with VersaFine Clair ink and black embossing powder. And this one is VersaFine ink and clear embossing powder. Do you see how, I guess it's kind of hard to really make a comparison because this one is on top of a pattern, but in person you can really see how the clear embossing powder over the black ink only on vellum creates a softer, more gray looking sentiment, where using the black embossing powder on vellum gives you that crisp black. So both of them are pretty here, just kind of depends whether you're looking for a more soft look like a gray embossing powder, then I would stick with the clear over the top, or black embossing powder if you want something more crisp. And that's only on vellum. On cardstock, I will always use VersaFine Clair with clear embossing powder. So let me grab my Misty here, and you're gonna see me use black embossing powder for the first time in a while. This is kind of really the only time, unless I want black sparkle embossing powder. We did use that recently for our Halloween release, but that has glitter in it, so that's a little something different. Okay, so we'll powder our vellum, the powder tool. Grab the VersaFine Clair ink and ink up that stamp. All right. Now we'll take that paper and I'm going to put the black embossing powder over the top. I was able to avoid any of those little specks of powder, of embossing powder, by conditioning. Oh no, I just did that. I spilled, Whitney.
I'll forgive you.
Okay.
It's okay. You need help. You need your little robot.
Well, I don't want to lose all of my black embossing powder, so I'm trying to save it.
What is this lady's name? Vanna?
No, Marilyn Monroe bot.
Oh.
Vanna. No.
Vanna Robot.
She's just
adorable.
making up names for her. Okay, well, I think I've saved as much as I can save, so here's what we do when Taylor messes up.
Oopsie.
Anybody else dropped embossing powder on your work surface lately? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and heat this then. have one of the frames from the feature frames set already pre-cut, and I am going to just adhere that centered over the top of the sentiment, and we're going to do a similar thing like we did with the frame earlier, where I'm going to cut the vellum around the outside. I'm going to position my adhesive on the inside of this frame so that I can still get under there with my scissors in order to cut the vellum apart from the frame. So I'm kind of trying to follow that inside line of the frame as I'm adhering it. And then I can see right where I want to add my frame, center that in there. Make sure it's pressed down into place. Oh, did somebody ask about the scalloped frame?
Oh, did I post the wrong?
I think so. Yeah,
Oh,
it was
I
from
put-
All Planned Out 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'll
okay.
do it.
It's just a little bit bigger, the one that I used, than the one that you
Yes,
posted.
I clipped the wrong one.
But that was last week. Last week I used that one. Yeah, or that was for the Combo Club Live. Okay, so going around the outside here, and I am going to pop this up, so we'll add a little bit of foam tape around the outside of this. Once I'm kind of slipping my scissors underneath that frame. And you can do that ahead of time too, before you glue it down, and even just kind of trim the corners off of it if you wanted to do it that way. So then we're going to position this. Maybe I didn't quite get exactly where I wanted to, because this is going to overlap my thank you just a touch here. I'm not liking that. So learn from my mistake and wait to place your branch down until you have your sentiment done. That is what I did on the first version. It looks like I just kind of positioned it a little bit higher so that it didn't interrupt my my sentiment, but I like how that one little guy is just hanging over the edge there. So that's how I will adhere this when I get some foam tape on the back. Grab my foam tape roll and I'll cut that into strips here. We do have thin foam strips, but those are really kind of designed specifically for shaker cards. This is our thin foam tape, so if you want just a little bit of a pop, then this is a great option, and you can cut it easily by leaving it on the roll and just trimming from there. And I think I can get both sides with just 2 strips of foam. All right. Linda asked if there's a specific vellum for heat embossing. No, there is not. You should be able to heat emboss on any vellum. What you might be thinking of with your question is acetate. So if you are embossing on acetate, there is a special heat-resistant acetate for embossing, and we do sell both types of acetate on the TE web store. So if you're going to emboss on it, just make sure that it's heat resistant or you will melt it. But for vellum, there's nothing special. Okay, there's panel number 2. This one is an easy finish, so we'll go this direction next. I have another, let's see. I have another frame here that I will be using on this one. And that's just going to sit inside, and then I've already pre-embossed the sentiment for that one. And that is from that same Bits and Blooms set. It's the one that says thank you very much. Get that on there straight. And then here's that thank you for being so kind. That's what it says. And I've got an extra little piece of foam tape here. And we'll place that down in the open white space. All right, and then the last one, I am probably not going to go into all the details, but let me explain what I used on this one, because I did find another fun product that coordinates with this. And Whitney, you might have to help me out with the name of this one. Branch Out. Can you look up that one? I think there's Branch Out 1 and 2, and I can't recall the one that I used. So it's this one here. There are 2 different versions of that Branch Out die set. If you want to come look at the one that I used, maybe you can tell them if it's 1 or 2. It's that one.
Okay.
So I die cut this from the green tea again and used that Brussels sprout ink to highlight the kind of inner portions of those leaves, and then I snipped them off of the stem or the branch portion. And then I just used those around the outside of that scalloped frame that's from the freebie this month, the frame set.
Subtle Sprigs.
Oh, Subtle Sprigs!
Yes, but they came out the same time as Branch Out, so I think that's probably why.
All right, so this one is called Subtle Sprigs, is where that die came from, and it just looked a lot like the artwork in the background. So I thought that would be another fun one. I used the same berries from the berry branch to add little purple berries to those pieces of the branch. And then the sentiment, "You're pretty much the best," is one of my favorites for Just Because cards. It's in the Daisy Dreams set right here. So there is that one. You guys, we did it. So do you have a favorite of the 4 quad cards that we created today? I would love to hear anything new that you learned or little tidbits that you took away. I will come back here and say farewell until next time. All right, thank you for tuning in today. That sale or special offer on the Create in Quads and the Triple Slim stencils goes through next week, Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central Time. So grab any stencils you want before then, and it is while supplies last. So hopefully supplies last all the way through next Tuesday, but take an early look for the best selection. And I will plan on seeing you guys. I will not see you on Thursday, but Susan will be here, and she's going to be using one of our past favorite triple slims. So another one that she'll get to kind of revisit newer products that have been released since that triple slim was offered and see how they combine with the older triple slims. So we're excited for her to be back from her vacation, and she'll be here with you guys Thursday at 10 a.m. and I will see you next